Good morning, everyone. It is just terrific to be back at CPAC, and what a great job Ted Cruz just did. Isn't he an inspiration? I'll tell you. It is great to have Ted as a senator and a member of the steering committee. It is great to see the energy and the enthusiasm and passion that is always surrounds and is a part of CPAC. So thank you so much. I am so excited about seeing so many young people, so much dedication to the principles that we share. And I got to tell you, it's inspirational for me every year that I get to come and spend some time with you. Of course, I have to work every day in a Senate that's controlled by the Democrats, so I need all the inspiration I can get, and I appreciate that. I got to tell you, I had a little inspiration yesterday, and the fact is, conservatives won a big victory on the Senate floor yesterday, and that doesn't happen very often. So I want to just tell you this story quickly because it's an important story. But to do that, I've got to begin at the beginning, and the beginning of this story is 3:51 a.m. on December 9th, 1981. At that moment, a 25-year-old Philadelphia police officer named Danny Faulker pulled over a car that was driving the wrong way on a one-way street with its lights off. The driver got out of the car and immediately began to attack Officer Faulker. 4 witnesses saw the driver's brother, who was standing across the street, a man named Mumia Abu-Jamal, come across the street and shoot Officer Faulker in the back. And while Danny Faulker lay on his back, unarmed, helpless, wounded, defenseless, Mumia Abu-Jamal pumped 3 more bullets into him and then 1 in his face that killed him. There were 3 other witnesses that heard Mumia Abu-Jamal brag about the fact that he had shot Daniel Faulker and wished that Danny Faulker would die. During the trial, when Daniel Faulkner's blood-stained shirt was displayed to the jury, Mumia Abu-Jamal turned and smirked at Danny Faulkner's 24-year-old widow, Maureen. So it was no surprise when a Pennsylvania jury took just 3 hours to convict Mumia Abu-Jamal of murder, and the next day, after 2 hours of deliberation, they sentenced him to death. Now, instead of allowing Daniel Faulkner's young widow to grieve in peace, a group of political opportunists decided to use this case to further their own radical agenda. They started fabricating claims of racism. They spread lies about the trial and the evidence. They organized rallies that amazingly and perversely started to portray Mumia Abu-Jamal as though he were the victim. Soon enough, the murderer, Jamal, became a cause célèbre, complete with the predictable, adoring Hollywood celebrities, free Mumia t-shirts and posters on college campuses. He had his own HBO special. They even named a street after him in Paris. This, ladies and gentlemen, was an international campaign to lionize a cop killer. It was based on hatred for America, contempt for our criminal justice system, and the goal was to indict America as a hopelessly racist country with a hopelessly racist and unfair criminal justice system, for which the solution was to release an unrepentant cop killer. Now, in 2009, 27 years after Danny Faulker was killed, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund decided to join this political campaign, this outrageous campaign. Debo Adegbile was the director of litigation at the NAACP's Legal Defense Fund at the time. He was responsible for, he supervised the entire legal staff at the Legal Defense Fund. And what did they do in this case? Well, they joined this outrageous mockery. 2 of the LDF lawyers in May of 2011 traveled to France to participate in a rally for Mumia Abu-Jamal. One of the lawyers said she was overjoyed when Abu-Jamal's death sentence was suspended, but bemoaned the fact that he wouldn't get a new trial and wouldn't be set free. The other LDF lawyer described Abu-Jamal as, quote, one of the people who are innocent but will continue to be put to death in America. At another event in New York the same year, another one of these lawyers working for Mr. Adegbile gushed, "It is absolutely my honor to represent Mumia Abu-Jamal." And she went on to say, "There's no question in my mind, there is no question in the mind of anyone at the Legal Defense Fund that the justice system has completely and utterly failed Mumia Abu-Jamal." And that failure has everything to do with race. Ladies and gentlemen, I agree that the justice system had failed, but it had failed Danny Faulker and his family. So imagine my shock, imagine the shock of Danny Faulkner's family when President Obama nominated Debo Adegbile to be the Assistant Attorney General in charge of the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department of the United States. I'll tell you, I could not let that stand without a fight. Now, I knew that the odds of defeating his nomination on the Senate floor were not very good. Presidents usually get their nominees confirmed. Democrats control the Senate. And as you all know, in an outrageous power grab, they unilaterally changed the rules so that now Senate Democrats can confirm presidential nominees with just a simple majority vote without needing a single Republican vote. So I knew that it wouldn't be enough to hold all the Republicans in opposition to this very, very poor choice. We would need at least 6 Democrats to come along with us. The odds weren't good. But sometimes you have to fight the fight, even when the odds aren't good. So I went to work. I wrote op-eds. I did floor speeches, radio and TV interviews, press conferences. I appreciate the terrific help from the Philadelphia FOP. Many, many conversations with my Senate colleagues. I was trying to persuade them we can't let this happen. Yesterday morning, the morning of the vote, I didn't know if we had the votes to defeat this nominee. But as I was preparing my closing argument for the Senate, something very interesting happened. The door to the Senate chamber opened, and in walked Vice President Joe Biden. Now, that was the best news I had had in a while. And that is not my usual reaction. But it was clear they didn't know whether they had the votes. And they thought they might just need Vice President Biden in the presiding officer's chair to cast a tiebreaker if there were a tie. So they called the vote, and I stood nervously in the well, consulting with my colleagues, making sure we had the votes we thought we had. And as the votes came in yesterday morning, we held every single Republican. And we picked up 7 Democrats. And we defeated the nomination of Debo Adegbile yesterday morning. Let me be clear about a couple of things. First of all, this is not at all about the principle that every defendant deserves a competent attorney. Of course, every defendant does, in fact, deserve a competent attorney in his trial. It is not about the idea that somehow a lawyer should be condemned for the crimes of his client. A lawyer should not be condemned for the crimes of his client. This was always about the principle that no one should be able to make a mockery of our criminal justice system, fan the flames of racial strife in America, join a dishonest international anti-American campaign, along the way drag the family of a fallen police officer through 3 decades of hell, and then be confirmed to a high post in the Justice Department. So why am I telling the story? It is not just to celebrate a conservative victory, but that's okay. Once in a while, we need to do that. I think it demonstrates that when we stand up and we fight on principle, we can actually win, sometimes even in Washington, D.C. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what Republicans need to do. It's what Republicans need to do across the country. It's what Republicans need to do in Congress. The fact is, we need to stand up to a president who thinks that the laws of America don't apply to him. We need to stand up to Senator Reid, who thinks that he can marginalize Republicans and the millions of Americans who voted for us in the United States Senate. And let's face it, we're not always going to win these fights, especially not when the Democrats control the Senate and Barack Obama is in the White House. But we can win some of these fights, and if we demonstrate the ability to carry on the fight, the willingness to have the fight, and the fact that we will base those fights on conservative American principles, then the American people will trust us to govern, and they will give us a chance to take this country back.